Right, all right, let's go. So at 18, I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is followed by Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain America, the First Avenger, and then the Avengers. Um, right, so I'll explain. Volume 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy, this was it's just so disappointing thinking about it. Like I tried to get excited. I didn't love the trailers. I tried to convince myself that like, oh, okay, no, it'll probably be quite, a bit of fun. And there are some good gags, and especially with Rocket Raccoon and Baby Groot, I think, and the whole like prison escape where they're trying to like describe, the key to him. I thought that was quite good and all, but I think for most of it, it's just like all of the characters felt emptier than they did in the first film. I think Drax was sort of just very one note, while in the first film they gave him a wee bit more depth to him. I didn't like Ego the Planet. I didn't think it was very good. I didn't like the whole like cancer plot sort of thing. I think the final climax with the do you guys remember the goo, and it just like comes over the planet and you see it like for 5 seconds, people running away from the goo, and it's just like what's going on. Like, I have no idea what the plan is here of like I don't know if like Ego's trying to like turn other worlds into him, or oh no, I think what redeems it, well, like the reason that it's not further down on my list is because it really develops Nebula, who's a character I really liked in the first one but didn't get enough screen time, and I think it's really helped her turn into one of the best characters in the MCU, especially by the time I get into Infinity War and Endgame. So yeah, the Gamora Nebula plot sort of saves this for me. Yeah, and then Guardians Galaxy 1, I don't hate this film. I actually quite like it quite a bit. Again, it's just sort of the climax. I think you're going to hear me say this a lot for a lot of the MCU films where it just sort of feels quite anticlimactic. Like it's not as big as it maybe should be, especially when you've got like Infinity Stones and Thanos involved. It just felt a little bit tame at the end. But I did like a lot of the characters that I thought were going to like really annoy me at the start of the film. I did enjoy Drax a lot more than I thought he would. I would same with Rocket Raccoon and all. So props to that. Ant-Man and the Wasp. I actually like this film. A lot of people don't like. I remember coming out of theaters with my friends, and they were sort of like, "Oh, that was a wee bit shit," or a bit like disposable. But I don't know. I always have a bit of a soft spot for the Ant-Man films, just because like they're so low scale, and like pardon the pun, but they really are. And I really enjoyed that none of them feel like, oh, the world's going to end here. I like just sort of the whole like it's just a heist film with superpowers. um I like the sort of Billy Hills sort of climax where they're all just like chasing after the MacGuffin. It is a bit more, it's worse than the first one, I think. The first one, I think the comedy worked a lot better, especially the whole Michael Pena running joke where he's narrating what's going on, sort of thing, and I think that's great. But yeah, and as much as I want to like the Wasp, I'm not really sure I do. I don't know if it's an Evangeline Lilly thing. Like, it's just hard to like her or watching her as a character. But yeah, oh, and the Quantum Realm, like it looks awful. Like, I'm really sorry, but if this were like one of the Arrowverse shows and I saw this in the Quantum Realm, I'd be like, okay, that's like you're low budget and you're really making an effort here, and I'll accept it. Like this doesn't take me out of it. But when you're a feature film for like the MCU, like I really think you could do better than this. Like it just feels so off, like they're not there, like nothing could possibly be there, and so it makes it feel so false when you're watching like Ant-Man in the Quantum Realm. It just completely takes me out of the film. um Captain America the First Avenger is, I think it's quite a good introduction to Captain America. um I think he's a, it develops the character quite well, but I just think the film is so expository. Like it just I remember feeling like I'm like ready for it to start and then it ends. If I don't know if you guys got that sort of feeling watching it, but it's just sort of like the big lead up and then nothing really happens at the end. He's just sort of like in the ice. And so it's like, it's actually quite a strange origin story in that way, because it doesn't feel like a complete story. Like, it really just sort of, I don't know, it's hard to describe. I'm trying to like compare it to AntMan Begins, which I think is like the best way to do an origin story, and what the difference is, or even Iron Man. I feel like there's a journey and the journey doesn't really like complete. I think people need multiple arcs to complete one full arc, and Captain America doesn't really get that in his first film. I think he's very much the same person he was at the start. And I have the same problem with the Avengers. I think Captain America is one of my favorite characters, and I just hate how he's written the Avengers. But it's also necessary for him to be written like that, for him to become the person that I do love as a character. So it's sort of like, it's not as low as I maybe should put it at times. But yeah, I hated the Avengers when I first watched it. I mentioned that this was my first film that I watched. I hadn't seen any of the other ones. I just went straight into the cinema with some friends, and 12-year-old Peter was in his angst phase. That like the darker, grittier superhero stories, and the Avengers just really isn't that. it's probably one of the most lighthearted things you can watch. I loved Hawkeye and Black Widow, and I always wished there was more of them in the film. Like, that was my introduction to Black Widow, her like interrogation scene, and I think that's brilliant. I think that's one of the best introductions, and it really shows like, it actually makes Iron Man 2 worse, because it shows that you don't need her to be in that film at all to give her a great introduction in the Avengers. Same with Hawkeye and Thor, although like to a lesser extent, because Hawkeye's barely in Thor anyway. But yeah, and Loki's sort of grown on me, but I don't really like him as a big bad character. I sort of like him where he's just like in the mix, like a little bit of a wild card. I prefer it like that rather than, oh, I'm going to conquer shit. But yeah, Hattie, next one 5.
Okay, so 18 for me as well is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Then I've got Spider-Man Far From Home. Then I've got Captain America Civil War, Thor the Dark World. How many are now? And then Doctor Strange. So Guardians 2 for me, again, let down. The soundtrack is much better. I love the opening sequence. I think that kind of one-shot style where you've got Baby Groot trying to plug the amp in to play Mr. Blue Sky. My heart. It's one of my favourite things ever. The rest of the film, however, I'd much rather watch that sequence for like 20 minutes than watch the rest of the film. Spider-Man Far From Home was better than I thought it would be, but the end scene credits were worth the whole film just waiting for. But then obviously there's that whole fiasco with Sony and Marvel, and we thought we might not even see the outcome of that. Thank God we are now, but that stressed me out for a long time. Civil War, I love Spider-Man's introduction in Civil War. I love it. I love that he jumps on the little van and he's like, oh, hi everyone. And he's got a cap shield. It's just amazing. And Paul Rudd in that film shaking Chris Evans' hand for way too long is wonderful. It's just little moments in the films that make them good, but the rest of the film is just doesn't match up, which is really annoying. For the Dark World, which is high on my list, it's 15. I love Thor the Dark World. I'm not gonna say I hate it, because I don't. I think it gets way too much stick for being a bad film. If you look past Metcalfe, because whatever Christopher Eccleston thought that would do for his career, I don't know, it didn't. But it's funnier. I think some of the fight sequences are quite good. I think the graphics are quite good. I think the end scene, having Loki come back, I know that's like a recurring thing all the time, but that set up the whole Thor Ragnarok sequence for Anthony Hopkins to impersonate Tom Hiddleston playing Loki, which I think is an amazing bit that Taika wouldn't have been able to do without that being And I just think, just stop hating it. Just leave it alone. if you don't like it, just don't watch it. I'll rewatch it for you. And then Doctor Strange was, again, like you said, Peter, it's not as good as I was expecting it to be. I remember watching it in the cinema really distinctly, and the Cape doing some really weird shit. But like, it's not something that I will instinctively want to go back and rewatch, like Thor: The Dark World. It's funny. Benedict Cumberbatch is good, but it's kind of problematic. And there's better films. The soundtrack's all right, but apart from that, that's me done.
So wait, what stops The Dark World from being higher on your list?
I mean, mainly, I don't want to spoil it, but other films.
No, go ahead. We'll put a little spoiler warning.
Yeah.
Or I'll put one in.
It's quite hard because when I was going through them, a lot of the first and second phases, and I was like, well, I like the third phase more, but I was choosing more third phase films for my top films than I was first and second, which was difficult. But I think plot-wise as well, For the Dark World is very similar to Thor in that sense. And also Loki as a character, who I love, unfortunately, Peter. I think he's brilliant. He didn't have a lot of development in that. In Thor Ragnarok, there's kind of a moment where Thor's like, do you know what? I'm sick of trying to help you. You can be good. I know you can be good because you've done it before, or you can be the god of mischief and you can be the trickster and you can be my enemy. That's your decision now. Pick a side. But in the first two Thor films, it's back and forth, and it changes a little bit in For the Dark World, but not enough. But I think there are other films now that have sort of surpassed that a little bit for me. But I still love it. I want to take care of it and be like, it's okay. All the dude bros on Twitter can shut up because I like it.
Honestly, I actually quite like Loki in The Dark World. I love his, where they're walking out and he's transforming into everybody. I love the little cameo of Chris Evans playing Loki, playing Captain America. I think that's brilliant. That. Like, I hadn't seen, I think I had never finished the film until I watched it this week, to be honest with you. So it caught me completely off guard, and I just oh my god, it was brilliant.
I think that's why it's so underrated, though. People just they see Metcalfe and then they switch off because he is undoubtedly a bit of a shit villain. Like he doesn't do a lot. He's a bit creepy, but apart from that, but even the bit where they're on the ship and Jane falls over and goes, "Oh dear, is she dead?" And I'm like, that's a funny line. And congratulations, you just decapitated your great grandfather. There's funny quips in it, and people don't notice them enough. Anyway, I'll shut up.
George?
I've got Captain America: The First Avenger, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Captain Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and then Far From Home.
Cool.
Far From Home, I actually really enjoyed it. I love the relationship between MJ and Peter, but I was just a bit disappointed that with kind of the avenue they took Mysterio. I loved all the illusion scenes and all the stuff, how they made him the illusionist, but the fact that he was just another Iron Man villain just was really disappointing. Because I could sort of get by with that from Homecoming, because it was Vulture was. It made sense for the character because he was so close to Peter, Iron Man. Then I was kind of hoping that, spoilers, because when Iron Man died, it would just be Spider-Man. But then they just keep bringing him back into it, and that kind of annoyed me a bit. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was, obviously the soundtrack was great. I loved Yondu and Peter's relationship, and Gamora and Nebula. That was really good. I did quite like Ego because of the. Obviously, I just love what's his name.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell was great, but yeah, like his overall plan was a bit dumb, and they didn't.
What was his plan? Sorry, like I'm honestly struggling to remember what his plan was.
Was to like infect every planet with him.
Okay,
I think.
so that's kind of what I imagined it was because of the goo, but
I also thought it was really cool when like they just did that shot of the planet and it like was straight out of the comics of just being Ego the living planet and you could just see his face and I was like, that's pretty cool. They didn't give Drax enough to do. He was just sort of sat around twiddling his thumbs, I guess. But yeah, Captain Marvel was good, but I don't remember it.
Fair.
And Avengers Age of Ultron, I liked it's going to sound really shallow. I like the action bits. That's quite fun. Like Iron Man versus Hulk was great. And I loved the first time we see Ultron when he's all really creepy, like there's no strings on me. Like when he's all like the makeshift robot him, like in the Avengers Tower, like that's really cool. And there's that scene where they're trying to lift Thor's hammer. That's just shows the relationship of the Avengers really well. But then it just sort of falls flat on its face. It's tragic. And it's just trying to set up the phase 3 at that point. Like there's so much set up for like, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do this. But then they just sort of forget about the plot of that film.
Yeah. Fair. Jerry?
So yeah. So my 18 is AntMan. I didn't really hate AntMan. I think it's a fine film. But I just remember it being Edgar Wright's baby, and then Marvel took it away, and I was like, I'll never forgive you for this. And maybe that's where my hatred of Marvel starts. I was like, they're not as filmmaker friendly as they say. I mean, they did a decent job getting Peyton Reed and then directing the film. It's just quite mediocre, I think. Like Paul Rudd's likable, and I always find it weird that what's his name? Wall Street guy, Michael Douglas, is in a Marvel film, and I always find that idea weird because I remember I took my family to watch it, and I told because my dad hadn't watched most of Marvel films. I was like, oh, but Michael Douglas is in this film, and I was like, he was like, fine, I'll go watch it, and afterwards I was like, Michael Douglas was in this film, and he is just there, like. I feel like Marvel, Kevin Feige at this point is just like a Thanos type villain, collecting all the famous Hollywood old actors, and then putting them in Marvel films and give them nothing to do other than monologuing and be the tutor, mentor, or whatever character for the main character. And that's what Michael Douglas is, like one of the most famous Oscar-winning actors here, doing a mentor role about talking about Scott, like, and it's so weird. And even him saying Scott is ripped from like the film he did, like Wall Street, where the main character is also called Scott. And I feel like it's just one day Kevin Feige watched like Wall Street and be like, oh, Michael Douglas says the word Scott really well, so we should cast him in this role just so he can say Scott in the Marvel film, Scott. Like, and the next one is Captain America, the first Avengers, I think. I actually like the film a lot because I like director Joe Johnston. He did like he's actually a designer for Boba Fett. Like he was like really essential in creating like concept arts and character designs. He created Boba Fett. He created like a lot of Stormtrooper designs in Star Wars, and he is like one of the person. I think there was a creature designer called like Stan Winston, and he was one of his like apprentice, I think, and that's why he got to direct Jurassic Park 3, which also sucks, and Captain America. But I always have a soft spot, like kind of like Hattie for like Thor 2. I have a soft spot for like Captain America, the first one, because like I like the Golden Age. I like it's kind of like weirdly, it's just about my favorite part is just when they're hanging out in like that 1950s area, like when he's talking to Peggy Carter, and I just find it really fun. And like Peggy Carter always like jabs at Captain America, and that's only the only time you get to see Peggy Carter and Captain America interact as a normal human being, you know, for obvious reasons. But I always like that kind of dynamic, and also Captain America also, like the whole story, like the whole thing feels very kind of comic book-ish. Feels very like right out of like a Golden Age comic. And I know it's not complete. It's quite like only half of a story, but I like the whole idea. I like the universe. It feels like Marvel Cinematic Universe at phase 1 feels at least has an identity about location, you know, about, you know, the set, like the mood and atmosphere. And I think the first one actually did a pretty well done job of recreating that World War II thing, even though it's still cartoonish. It's still like there's very little stakes other than, you know, Bucky died, but we know that she's not gonna die anyways, you know, like, but like I like the whole, I like the film, and also Tom Lee Jones is in there being grumpy, so I was like, I like this film, you know, but it's not a good film by any stretch. It's a decent film, but it's not a great film, but you know, compared to other films. And the next one, remember I mentioned that I don't hate any of the directors in Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think I actively hate Russo brothers. Like they are like the most unremarkable, but gets praised the most for doing the work that anybody can do. I think they're like Spielberg light, but without like, but not even like J.J. Abrams level. Like J.J. Abrams is like a person who rips everything from Spielberg, but like the Russo brothers is just that, and they're so unremarkable. I think they will be the least favorite brothers, or the least like remembered brothers of all the filmmaking brothers. And I think the reason is because they are boring. They're so boring. Like yeah, for the second Captain America is interesting, you know, like there's a fight sequence, but visually it's like their visual style is a parking lot. It's just a lot of grays, and I think like the Civil War just encapsulate that so well. It's just so gray, and like and they're so self-serious. Like all the characters are so like, oh my god, it's about the law. It's actually about the individual. But the thing is, after they said that, they actually didn't follow through that, because they're not fighting because of that. They're fighting because Bucky is Captain America's best friend. And then it didn't even have the audacity to make Captain America gay. You know, if you're gonna make Bucky the central thing you're gonna fight over the Captain America films, then get them in a relationship, because nobody believes the Sharon, is it? Or something, like a Karen or something, like a very weird, mediocre name. And when they kiss, when she kissed with that woman, whatever her name is, nobody believes that. I was like, that's the most awkward. That's, you know what's that like? That's like when you force, just for example of a gay man, Barney Stinson from How I Met Your Mother. What's his name?
Neil Patrick Harris.
Neil Patrick Harris. It's as if you force Neil Patrick Harris to pretend to like a woman, which is what happened in How I Met Your Mother. And everybody sitting there has just been like, I don't believe this. Like, it's like that. Because when Captain America kissed that woman, and I was like, why are these dudes so impressed? You guys are being homophobic. Like he's obviously not enjoying that kiss. It's almost like he's only kissing that girl because everybody's looking, and I'm supposed to act heterosexual. And I was like, and that's why I just dislike Russo brothers. I think like they're just like so basic. 1, 2, 3. The next one, Age of Ultron. I think I like Joss Whedon. I have to admit, like, I think the way he directs action is actually quite interesting. It's quite fluid, and there's like longer shots, and there's a little bit operatic sense in his action scenes. Even in the first action scenes of Age of Ultron, I find it really interesting. Like all the Marvel films since then has become like a second unit directed kind of thing. I trust Joss Whedon use second directed thing as well, but he always has that iconic shot. Like there's always something worth remembering for in Age of Ultron. There's a Hulk and Iron Man fight. There's the opening sequence, even the ending, you know, when they redid the spinning shot again. I mean, at least Joss Whedon's trying to make something of his own. You can see it's a Joss Whedon film, where in other Marvel films you couldn't see the director's style. So I respect him for that, but it's not a good film. Like we mentioned before, Marvel forced him to put in all the weird stuff so he can put in his farm, like Hawkeye farm stuff, which is also the bizarre situation. Like, who cares? Who cares? Like, what? Everybody stop pretending you like Hawkeye, because, you know, like Age of Ultron is just like a light Hawkeye film to give him more backstories, so people think they're gonna kill him, but he didn't actually died, like Quicksilver died or something. And I was like, yeah, but you know, it's fine, but it's still a bad film by all standards. And what's the next one? I think Endgame. Yeah, I just didn't mind Endgame. I didn't care Endgame. Like, yeah, I liked it when I first watched it, but I was like, it's not a film I will want to revisit anytime soon or ever, because like it's just like it's like a television show. It's no fun watching a finale and where everything pays off, but also a lot of things happen. Also, very little things happen. It's like, oh my god, we're gonna celebrate all these Avengers original OG cast, but also it's gonna be the most visually uninteresting film that made. Like, a lot of people has been examining like the climax of Endgame, but like visually it looks so bad. It's just like even like the Captain America catching the Thor's hammer shot, like the visual composition is just off. Like I think the focus is actually on the background, and it's like a lot of people has did like an analysis on it. I was like, and whenever people say, oh, the cinematography is so good on Endgame, and you actually watch the film and just like, what are you talking about? It's just gray, and the suits are so basic and mediocre. Like, it's like white and red. That is their suit. That's the suit Avengers morph into. They wear a red and white suit. Couldn't, like, Iron Man is there. Couldn't he at least like design something more fancy? Like, any of the suit he wears is more interesting than the one they wore in Endgame, which is like bizarre. Really bizarre. And I will say this, like, I think Avengers Endgame will actually, like, in 100 years time, God forbid no nuclear war happens, but I think if in the future, if the aliens finds our artifacts and they pick out Avengers Endgame and they put it in a Blu-ray disc or DVD disc or whatever, they'll be like, that doesn't make any sense. Probably because they haven't watched any of the Marvel films, but I always feel like a film needs to stand on its own, you know, at least need to make sense, like, what's happening in the screen. But I think if you watch it just by its own, it doesn't even like stood out. Like the story doesn't, it's like, even like Iron Man thing is just quite forced. Like, I don't care. Like, Robert Downey Jr. has literally lost all of his chops to improvise, to be a dynamic actor since he become Iron Man. I think, like, he actually did a lot of interesting roles when he first started, before he started doing Iron Man, and when he first started doing it, but he just stopped doing that because he can just do Iron Man, and his influence on the Marvel Cinematic Universe is still being seen. But I think, like, the Endgame's attempts to give him an actually interesting character arc is actually quite boring, and like, oh, I love you 3000. And it's like, just give him daughter and doesn't even develop him that much and just throw him there. I was like, and yeah, that's my rant on Endgame. Like,
Wow.
I just don't care. I think, like, I once read an article, I think a Guardian article, where it's like an art critic talking about Captain America Civil War when it came out. I think it's actually the most interesting article I read, because like, it's just him breaking down emotionally, saying like he doesn't understand any of it. He doesn't understand why are these characters fighting over some regulations and laws, and why aren't these characters having like interconnected or interrelated character moments, or like having any, you know, any emotional stakes. It's just about them fighting nonsense, and that's just me for like Endgame. Like, I don't understand. I feel like an alien watching Endgame, I was like, what is that? Similar to the way I watched like Rise of Skywalker, which is like I'm more of a Star Wars fan, but when I watched Rise of Skywalker, I'm just like, what? And it's kind of where I felt in Endgame. Like I'm probably never gonna watch it. And all right, sorry for the longer rant.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I have comments on what Jerry said. Can I go ahead or?
Oh, go ahead.
And Endgame is far up on my list, so should I just answer when I talk about Endgame or?
Oh yeah, just wait until I get to Endgame, I think.
Okay.
Alright.
My next 5 are. I had to actually change it now, but I don't know why. I just these are the ones that I don't know where to put. So it's most of them I like, but it's just I liked others more. So there's no particular reason, except for Doctor Strange. But Iron Man 3, just because I think that the problem with Iron Man movies, apart from the first one, it's that it's the same reason to hate Tony Stark over and over again, and it's because he's a weapon maker, and it's the reason why people attack Tony Stark or hate Tony Stark. It's the same thing for the 3 movies, and it's a problem that never gets a resolution. So it's kind of pointless and it gets kind of boring at the end because it's just the same thing over and over again. The same movie copied and pasted with different aesthetics, I guess. So that's why Iron Man 3 it's that so down. Even though, to be fair, he's my favorite Avenger. Then Ant-Man and the Wasp, I never finished this movie. I started it twice, never finished it. Never got engaged with it, never felt, I don't know, connected with the characters, I guess. So I just, it didn't spoke to me. It didn't tell me anything interesting or worth watching for me, I guess.
It's way up on your list for something you never finished.
No, it's down. It's I don't know. Yeah, I guess because I like Ant-Man and I found it funny. And it's just because I don't know where to put it, because I hate Age of Ultron and Civil War more than Ant-Man and the Wasp, and just because I love Ant-Man so much, it's because Ant-Man, I guess, and because I hate the others more. Doctor Strange because it's just very problematic, as you guys said. I did find it entertaining, but that's it. I don't think it was entertaining enough to move past the problematic things. And again, it's so high up on my list, I guess, because I hate the others more. Black Panther, I felt really bad putting Black Panther in this position, but I never got Fearmonger. I thought it was a very not strong villain, I guess. I found it kind of disappointing that the whole how they sorry, I forgot how to speak English. How they presented the whole issue. Again, I thought it was a really easy to solve problem if they would just sit down and talk. So I found the whole movie kind of pointless. I like the part where, it's the whole growing thing and becoming Black Panther and what being Black Panther means. And what it means for him and what it means for the whole, Wakanda, I guess, culture. And I feel really bad putting it here, but I just liked other movies more. Again, I think it's probably one of the best Marvel movies, but most of them for me are ranked based on sentimentalism, and I don't know, I had other things attached to the rest of them that made me put Black Panther in this place. And then I had Spider-Man Homecoming next, but I changed it for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, because I love Spider-Man, and Guardians of the Galaxy, I love them. I love Baby Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but I don't know. Yeah, I liked other more, and the things that I did like about Guardians of the Galaxy was the relationship dichotomy between him, Star-Lord, and his father, and Star-Lord and was it Mel? Was it what's the name again?
Mickey Rook? Not Mickey Rook, another Rook.
Yeah.
Another person.
Yeah, and I loved the ending. I think that's a very powerful scene, and how, I don't know, yeah, how they all came together and was like, I should have put more value into him than I was before, because you never know what you have until you lose it. So I love that scene, but I love Spider-Man more. So
Cool. Right, my next one's